This is the O'Reilly Pro Curve, and you've probably seen it before in some clickbait, cringy article from a website like Bar Down, and if you like Bar Down, you should immediately exit this video and go check into your nearest mental institution because something is very, very wrong with you. So the curve is a pretty standard heel curve with the exception of, obviously, the absolutely ridiculous toe kink at the end, and O'Reilly came up with this because if you've ever used a heel curve, you'll know that when you're taking a corner, sometimes the puck just flies off the end of the toe. The kink definitely helps with going around those corners and cupping the puck a little better, but you still have all the advantages of a heel curve. O'Reilly said he does everything from the heel of his blade, so using this toe kink, he can pull the puck back quicker to his heel if he wants to take a shot or make a pass, anything like that. The P92 and the O'Reilly Pro Curve really have nothing in common, but before I ever had the O'Reilly Curve in person, I always thought it was just a Drury with a toe kink. But the O'Reilly is actually about an inch longer than the P92 or the Drury, but it's just bent so much at the end of the toe that it ends up being about the same length as the Drury or the P92. And you can see the length comparison here a little better. The total length is about the same for both of them. The blade profile is also similar. The O'Reilly has a lower lie, so the heel's not quite as sharp, and also the profile is just slightly thinner. And the lie on the O'Reilly is also quite a bit lower. I measure it at about a 4.5 compared to the lie 6 of the P92. And then for your viewing pleasure, I threw in a little clip here of that toe kink. It's amazing how something can be so ugly yet so beautiful at the same time. Now the question you've been wondering for years, how bad can this curve possibly be? Let's find out. Now turn your clocks back, warm up against your fire, get a nice blanket, and listen to Grandpa tell you about how to use a heel curve, because that's the only people that are still shooting like this. I don't like it. It's not bad. It's just kind of weird. You have to sort of shovel the puck, and it ends up being more like a glorified saucer pass. So while I'd like to give you an honest review about how this shoots, unfortunately I wasn't born in 1920, and I don't really know how to use a heel curve, but I did my best, and it was okay. Wasn't great, wasn't horrible. For shot mechanics with this, you're really just flinging it off the heel like I said before, sort of like a glorified saucer pass. While I definitely like to make fun of heel curves for being the choice of all old-timers, they definitely do have their advantages, and one of those is for sure saucer passes. There's really nothing like a heel curve when it comes to saucer passes. You can spin the puck around so nicely with the straight blade, and then you can just sort of send the puck flying. It just looks beautiful. If you're a guy who just throws saucer passes, like that's your number one task, you're like Nicholas Backstrom, but you only throw 9-foot-high saucer passes, this is your curve. You probably think that this is going to suck for stick handling, but let me show you what the O'Reilly curve can do. O'Reilly said he does everything from the heel of his blade, and that definitely includes stick handling. This actually felt awesome for stick handling, again, if you're keeping it at your heel, because if you end up moving that puck forward and it hits the toe of the blade, only God knows where that puck is going. One adjustment I had to make here was with the lower lie. I had to move my hands further out in front of me, which I didn't mind at all. I thought it felt pretty good. And again, this is a really flat blade, so it's going to be really comfortable for stick handling. And then that toe kink only can help you with sort of going around those corners, but on just like straight stick handling back and forth, it feels really good. Toe kink, you don't even really notice it. I feel like the reason heel curves died out is because it's so much easier to dangle with a curve like the P92 or the P28, especially for skill guys, with the exception of maybe like Linus Clausen, the Swedish genius. Amazingly, this curve is really good for backhand toe drags, but the real moneymaker here is definitely the forehand toe drags. That's what this curve was made for. That's why O'Reilly added the toe kink, was to pull the puck in from the toe back to the heel quickly, which is exactly what you're doing when you're doing a forehand toe drag. From a feel perspective, I didn't like this curve as much as I do like the Line A curve or even just a stock P92 for making these smooth type of moves. And I feel like that's one of the reasons that people have sort of moved away from the heel curve, and now the P92 has become the most popular curve, and even the P28 is starting to gain a lot of popularity just because they have that nice area where you can cup the puck, it feels a lot smoother, and you can make these moves a lot easier with those types of curves. I don't really see anyone using this curve as like a one-timer guy. I don't think Alex Ovechkin is going to start using an O'Reilly curve, but we're still going to do one-timers for the fun of it. For the one-timers, we're obviously not using the toe kink at all because we want at least a little bit of predictability when we're taking these shots, but heel curves are still very popular among D-men in the NHL. And the reason for that is you can take big, heavy shots. They're not going to be sick one-timers like you get with the Rask curve or the Line A curve or the Obi curve, but, they're heavy, they're good, solid shots that you can get off from the point. Shooting with this is not my style. I don't like to shoot this way, but I know that there are people out there who definitely do, so I'm trying to remain impartial here, and I don't think it's bad for shooting. I just don't like the way that you have to shoot. So I'm going to give it a 7.9 out of 10. Like I mentioned earlier in the video, there's nothing like a heel curve for saucer passes. They just fly off so nicely and so smooth. It's just a thing of beauty. This is a saucer pass in its truest form, and the O'Reilly curve gets a 9.1 out of 10 for saucer passes. Stick handling was comfortable, a lot more comfortable than I thought it would be, but not quite at the level of a P92, so I'm going to go with a 7.9 out of 10. For dangles, the forehand toe drags are great, the backhand toe drags are surprisingly good, but overall I just don't think that this feels as smooth as some of the newer curves on the market, like the Line A curve, like the P92, and I can only really give it a 7.1 out of 10 for dangles. Normally, I actually like heel curves for like a big slap shot or a one-timer, but in this case, I think that the low lie was throwing me off, so I'm only going to give it a 6.8 out of 10 for one-timers. With a 7.9 for shooting, a 9.1 for saucer passes, a 7.9 for stick handling, 7.1 for dangles, and a 6.8 for one-timers, the total average score for the O'Reilly curve is a 7.8. This does unfortunately place the Fact Daddy in last for the season up until this point, but it definitely does have some redeeming qualities like the saucer passes. This curve becomes pretty fun to use once you figure it out, and if I were to recommend it to one group of people, it would definitely be heel curve users that want to try out something that's a little more fun, or if they're having that issue of the puck flying off the end of the toe, this is the perfect solution to that problem. Last thing, you can check out our newest batch of inventory at www.prostockHockeySticks.com. Most of the good stuff's already gone because the Instagram followers get first dibs, but if you want to be in that group for the next drop, make sure to follow us on Instagram at ProstockSticks. Thanks, boys.